So, oh, no, we're not good to go. We live? Are we good? I think we're live. I think we're set. I think we're ready. Hello. Welcome. Hi, my name is DJ Howard. I am the chapter president for Minorities for Medical Marijuana here in the beautiful Sunshine State of Florida. We are so happy to have you here joining us this evening. We have some awesome guests who will be joining me. We're going to have a great discussion. This is a new series we're doing for M4MM, the very first one of its kind. Let's Talk Cannabis. We're going to have different chapter presidents from all over the country and our different areas that we have in M4MM. They're going to come out, have great discussions about what's going on in their area so that we can all stay aware of what's going on. So this is the first one. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, my name is DJ Howard, representing Florida, and we're going to be talking today about Florigrown's recent challenge here in the state of Florida that went all the way up to the Supreme Court to get a verdict where they actually went against what Florigrown was arguing. We have some amazing people here, and I'm going to get into some intros right now. First up, we have, hey, Creed, how you doing? Oh, by the way, please jump in the comments. We love to hear from you, ask questions, all that good stuff. Share with your friends. We appreciate that as well. But we're going to jump into some introductions. So first, we are going to start with Tamieka Range, representing Cookies. She is going to be here with us this afternoon. Tamieka, are you there? How you doing?
I am here, DJ. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but I think we're going to get it cleared up here in a second. Appreciate you for jumping on, Tamieka. We also have from Florida Can, Jodi James. Jodi, step on up to the stage. How you doing?
In the house. Good to see you, DJ.
We got Jodi coming. Let's be patient. Jodi, there you are. How you doing?
There we go. Glad to be in the house with you. Thanks for inviting me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. We also have Mr. Cannabis Law himself, my man, Dustin. Dustin, what's going on, man?
What's up, my man? Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And last but certainly not least, it's our pleasure to be joined by the CEO of Florigrown, Mr. Adam Elin. Adam, welcome.
How you doing, DJ? Glad to be here.
Doing well. Thank you so much for being here. As you can see, we have a great group of people. We're going to have some great discussion this afternoon, this evening, depending on where you're at. But to start, I want to set the room, make sure we have some context and everybody understands kind of what we're talking about with this Florigrown case. So I could, tell you what was in the news, but we have Adam here. I mean, Adam, he went through it himself. Like I said, CEO of Florigrown. Adam, can you talk to us a little bit about why you wanted to challenge, what went into that, what were you arguing? Give us a little bit of the context, if you would, please.
Yeah, totally. So we sued a long time ago, like 4 years ago, right after the initial law was passed to implement the constitutional amendment here in Florida that gave us the right to medical marijuana. The law they passed was, well, it was problematic in a lot of ways, but the biggest problem is it created a cartel of companies to run the medical marijuana business and sort of buy and sell those licenses for, tens of millions of dollars, sort of at will, anytime they wanted. And the state at that time refused to let anybody else even apply. So in 2018, after a year after they had missed all their deadlines for when the law itself required them to issue new licenses, and they hadn't issued any licenses at all, and they hadn't really even issued any rules, we sued. And as soon as we sued, they went ahead and issued some rules, big surprise. But then they threw those rules out, and here we were another 6 months later, and still nothing from the state. So we filed for a preliminary injunction, an injunction to force them to implement the constitutional amendment. And our argument was really that the system that they set up was unconstitutional, that it violated the amendment and it violated a part of our Constitution called the special law provision, which, among other things, doesn't allow the state to give to pass a law to give a grant of any property or any benefit to a specific individual or group of individuals. So we proved our case in the lower court. We got the injunction, which shocked everybody, and then immediately they appealed to the district court, and that put the injunction on ice. The injunction said, issue a license to Florigrown and start implementing the amendment, or you have 15 days to tell us why you can't do that. And instead of doing that, they just appealed. And we went to the First District Court of Appeals, which was a really, really pro-government court. So nobody thought we were going to win there. And we did. We won 2-1, and we got a great decision out of that court. And then they asked for the entire court, all the judges on that court, to hear it in a rehearing. And we won there too, in a very contentious back and forth decision. It's clearly a controversial issue, but the core legal arguments that we made were very sound and persuasive to that court. And then we went to the Supreme Court because they appealed the win that we had in the district court to the Supreme Court. And it took a long time for a ruling to come down at the Supreme Court. And that's the ruling that just came down now. We had 2 oral arguments. They asked for 2 oral arguments, the court did. Tons of papers being filed, and more than a year, about 18 months of time since we got to the Supreme Court. And at the end of the day, they issued a ruling that went completely against us. So they quashed our preliminary injunction and said we were wrong on all 3 legal issues that we challenged with. So it's a tough ruling. It's tough to get a ruling like that because it was sort of a worst case scenario. But at the same time, it's difficult to be too upset about a ruling when you know you're right, and we were right in that situation. So nothing in the court's decision was enlightening legally. It was just, they just rubber stamped the state's position, which was pretty ludicrous. So what they are saying with this case, kind of the most important thing they're saying that people here could take away is the legislature's in charge when it comes to medical marijuana. And it doesn't matter if what they're saying contravenes the Constitution, they're going to back the legislature up. So the legislature is the beginning and the end of our struggle to make the system better here in Florida and more equal in Florida.
Right. And we really appreciate that context, Adam. Crazy. You won that many times and then get all the way up and they decide to reverse it. I want to kick it over and ask Dustin the question, Mr. Cannabis Law, from a legality standpoint. It seems that, like we were saying, Adam and his team, they fought and they went through the necessary lower courts multiple times, and the ruling was in their favor. How often do you see something where in the lower courts you get ruled in favor, but then they decide to appeal it and take it higher? How often does that happen, and what does that speak to about the importance of marijuana here in our home state of Florida?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why they have appellate courts. So, they have the lower courts, and then it goes to an appellate court, and then it'll even go to the Florida Supreme Court. And a lot of times in cases, even after you win at a lower court, even if you get like a judgment, let's say, a lot of times cases will settle after that because the other side will still say, hey, we're going to go appeal it. And so even if you get $1 million judgment, you may end up settling just so you don't have to go through the appellate process. Now, the reality is a lot of people don't go through the whole appellate process because it's extremely costly from a legal perspective. Obviously, you know, you got to pay legal fees and there's a lot of legal work that goes into it. Adam kind of outlined, you know, the whole time frame and all the different arguments and the motions and the hearings and all that stuff costs a lot of money. I'm not even going to begin to imagine how much money was actually spent on this litigation. And so the reality is yeah. So the reality is usually you don't go through the full appellate process, not necessarily because, you know, cases aren't going to get overturned or reversed or whatever, or quashed. It's really because a lot of the time people just decide, all right, we spent our money, we'll threaten to go and appeal, and hopefully settle for something less than what the ultimate judgment was. So, you know, you don't see things get appealed as far as they did in this particular situation.
And remember, it was the state appealing the whole time. For us, we never appealed once, actually, in this case, because we won everywhere except the Supreme Court. So we were defending it. And so it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, you're faced with that prospect, and the state's spending our money. So they're going to keep, you know, they spent millions of dollars on this and other cases. So they just will be relentless until they win or, you know, the Supreme Court decides. In a case like this, some cases you can't take to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court only hears some kinds of cases in Florida. But so those district courts that ruled for us are really the final court on a lot of cases in the state. But you know, we were not a favorite to win in the appeals court. And then once we won in the appeals court, we were more looked on as a favorite in the Supreme Court. But that court, you know, the current governor appointed 3 justices to that court, and because there were 3 that were forced to retire because they were 70. So the decision to elect the governor we did led directly to 3 justices being appointed, all of whom ruled against us, and all of whom have been you know, problematic in the decisions they've made so far in the little time they've been on there, and really reshaped the court from like a 4-3 conservative majority to a 6.5-1/2 conservative majority. And that's a big shift. And when we started this case, the Supreme Court was 4-3. And now, and you know, and Gillum was running against DeSantis. So, well, it was maybe even before that. But the point is, you know, things could have been a lot different if those things had gone a different way. Everything connects.
Everything connects. And I hear people often tell me sometimes that, you know, you should keep cannabis and politics separate. But it's like that, like cannabis, like we cannot avoid that. It is absolutely a thing. If it wasn't, when Adam won the first 3 times, we would have been done with this when we got to the district court. We would have been moving on. We would be more open. More businesses would be able to, because at the end of the day, that's what we're arguing. We want more businesses to be able to enter this industry and not have to do everything from top to bottom from a vertical integration standpoint, because we know that's so difficult. We talked about the money that Adam and his team spent. Dustin mentioned a lot of cash that goes into that. Cash going into having a vertically integrated company, not a lot of people have that. That's why we have so few of those companies. And I want to kick this question over to Tamieka. Working with cookies, you understand just how, you know, how much goes into that process, and, you know, how many different layers there are to it. Can you just talk to us a little bit about, on your end, where you could see that, you know, some small businesses could come in and be able to do some good, but at the same time, how crazy of a process it is, and how much goes into it to be able to not only just have a vertically integrated company, but be able to operate in multiple states? That has to be a total different cost, right? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. every state is different, and to be in a vertical state, you can't just worry about the money for your licensing. You have to worry about your money for the long game. How are you going to build up your facility? How are you going to stand up your facility? During the licensing, after the licensing, you have to build it out. You have to hire employees. You have to market. There's so many levels to it. So it's not just about putting the money together to get the license, but you have to think about the long game, and going and doing it in a multi-state operation is very difficult because you have different laws in every state that you have to abide by. So it's not a one size fits all like your Coca-Cola, which is what a lot of us are used to. I come from an advocacy background and a business background. So we're used to in the world of securities, it is a one size fits all, and you know exactly where you fit. But in cannabis, you know where you fit depending on where your state is. And depending on where your state is, that's also going to depend on, does your state statute, your state laws have anything in there addressing social equity, requiring diversity, requiring you to address the war on drug, the harm from the war on drugs. So even if your state does not have those laws, it is up to the MSOs and the operators in that state to take it upon themselves to do what they need to do community outreach, to be there to hire in the community, and to support nonprofits in the community, to support youth in the community, to educate the community. It is their responsibility. So coming from an advocacy background and being a cannabis attorney in the space for 6-7 years before I even moved into this space with Cookies, I'm very happy to be with a company that is although we're a beneficiary of the licenses that were issued in the state of Florida, I'm happy to be with a company that is serious about giving back to the community, hiring in the community, and just being serious about those initiatives, because without being serious about hiring third parties, hiring minorities, hiring veterans, hiring other people that cannot get into a vertical market just because of the inability to have the access to capital, the access to resources. Even if you have the acumen to know how to grow the plant, having the business wherewithal is a completely different ballgame. And then having the business wherewithal in the cannabis space is a different ball game. The compliance will kill you. So it is up to the MSOs to be serious about really being engaged and bringing in the people that cannot get access to the industry due to the regulations, until the regulations and the laws change to be in their favor.
And Tamieka, you're so awesome. I asked you a question because there was a point that I was going to bring out, and you made the point perfectly. You spoke exactly to the point that I was trying to get across. Minorities cannot get access in this. We don't have the access to the capital, to a lot of times the resources to be able to be a part of a vertically integrated, or to be a vertically integrated company ourselves. It's just too much. We don't have that. So it is super important and I saw Bakari ask what Cookies was in the comments. Cookies is an MSO, recently now is here in Florida. Tamieka can speak a little bit more about that. But it's so important for those MSOs, especially with given how the law still is, we weren't able to get past, like what Adam was talking about, to have more small businesses be able to be involved. We have to have the accountability for the MSOs. And I want to kick it over to Jodi. Jodi has been, in the state doing her thing from an advocacy standpoint as well for a long time. Jodi, talk a little bit about what you have seen in the state over time as far as that advocacy goes. I know I can say what I've seen, but I would like somebody else to say what I've been yammering about for a little while now, as far as the advocacy that we've seen in the state with MSOs and really having diversity, reaching out to the community, things of that nature. Talk to us a little bit about that, Jodi.
Wow, you just really put me on the spot. That wasn't what I was ready to talk about at all. I have been doing this.
I got to keep you on your toes.
I guess so. Well, I have been doing this in the state for a very long time. And when I was in Tallahassee this past legislative session, I was talking to a couple of the lobbyists, and they said, there is no way the Supreme Court is going to blow up $1 billion industry. So that was kind of the tenure, is that, this is a special law. Adam's lawsuit was 100% right. As an advocate, I have been banging my head against the wall quite literally for about 25 years. The legislature, and you guys kind of touched on this, and I'll say it again very concisely, elections have consequences. Not only did the governor's election have consequences, but all the way down the line, down to your city council, because they're the ones that are going to decide whether or not you have a dispensary in your community, and how far you have to travel to get your medicine. The unfortunate thing about this decision is that the patient community, most of them will have no concept that this affects them. 3 companies already own 2/3 of the market. Those patients they're finding something that works okay, or they're going back to the street, or they're deciding that CBD is probably good enough and that they don't need to break the law. And these people are not finding the full benefit of this plant. I mentioned, I had an opportunity earlier to see an interview with Joe Redner, and I thought that, and he was one of the principals behind this with Adam, and I thought that he was fascinating because he talked so much about how important it is for everybody to have access to this plant and everybody to have access to this market. And I don't like the way the rollout is happening, where just a few people get control of the THC market, and everybody else will get to play a little bit with the CBD market, but we've got the laws so tightly wound so that a farmer can lose their entire crop because of bad laws. So what have I been seeing in the advocacy industry? Well, in the advocacy, we need more. We need more people. We need them to be better educated. We need them to be better funded. We need the people that are on the front line, the people that are providing the services, to understand that elections have consequences and that we can't play both sides. I'd like to see 160 candidates that people can vote for in every election in this state. There's 160 races. I'd like to see everybody have a pro-legalization candidate. And I'd like to make sure that the candidate thinks about legalization in such a way that is going to touch on the things that Tamieka mentioned. And that's, legalization is more than just, let's set up a scheme so a few folks can get really, really rich off of marijuana. That is not the end game for people like Cannabis Action Network. We've been trying to make it so that you can grow with this plant, because if you have access to it, you may be able to calm your anxiety. You may be able to stop the Parkinson's. You may be able to find that it's easier to take care of your kids, whatever. That's still growing with this plant. When the laws are right, we're all going to be able to grow with this plant. We're all going to be able to grow this plant, and the economy that some people have really been taking advantage of for a very long time is going to be in the sunshine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you spoke to guys that I think that definitely have the patience and advocacy standpoint, speaking for the people, what they need, what they have the ability to do. I just found out, I was speaking with somebody today down in Miami. Within the actual city limits of Miami, they decided that no cannabis dispensaries can be there. So if you're in Miami and you need to get to a dispensary, Miami's a big place. Like that drive is not just up the street. It makes it very difficult for people who truly need the plant to have a better quality of life, and who could use it and may not even know about it, which is a whole nother conversation. it just makes it so much harder for them. It makes it harder for them, and it makes it harder for businesses, which is the other side of it. And I think all of that flows together. I think that's why it's so important for us to have these conversations, so that not only we can educate people, as Jodi was saying, about what's going on and why it's important, why it may not seem like it's important, it's happening on the Supreme Court level with companies like Florigrown, but how that all trickles down and affects people on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure that, even Adam with this business, I'm sure there were a few different reasons why they decided to put so much behind that and put so much money and resources behind that. The story of the why is always so very interesting to me. Adam, can you talk a little bit about that, if you would, please? Because I imagine that's quite a decision to make about how far you want to push that.
Yeah, I think, well, how far we wanted to push it is a little function of once you're committed, and you can't keep winning and not defend yourself as you move forward. So
you got to see it through.
It's really about the decision to get into it, and there are three reasons that we wanted to sort of challenge what the state had done in the court. And all three have been talked to one extent or another in the last few minutes. The first is we believe in a market-based approach to the marijuana economy in the state. There's no reason that someone who can scrap together a few resources and has talent and has the capability, like every other profession in this state, of following the regulatory requirements, that they can't participate and do something. And you can write all the little provisions about, each license holder having to have a diversity plan and sort of legislative trappings of a more diverse economy. But unless you empower people to actually own something without having to have hundreds of millions of dollars when it comes to actually building out that statewide infrastructure, unless you think about them in the way you create the system, you'll never achieve anything approaching diversity. And we felt really strongly about that. And that's on the market side. I mean, I remember sitting in a room full of people talking about this at a community meeting in East Tampa, and there was someone there who was talking about the soaps that they make and how what a great opportunity it would be to make tinctures or put THC in their soaps, and how do you do that? And the answer is you don't. There's no way in right now. There's just no way in because of the way they set it up here. So we didn't think that was right. And our team, Jodi mentioned Joe, my longtime partner, Joe Redner, who is, really been an advocate on all these issues in the courts, on a lot of civil liberties issues, and First Amendment issues, and all sorts of LGBT equality issues in Tampa for a long time, and he built that on winning in the courts. That was really a big part of how he was successful in doing that in the last 40 years. And we've spent the last 20 working with him on those things. So when we put together a plan to do this, first of all, we wanted to do it the best anybody could, meaning have the best marijuana business for Florida in Florida. And then secondly, we wanted the state to fulfill the promise of the amendment that we helped pass with 73%. And they didn't do that. And we were there at the table when they were writing that law. We were there with Jodi and Tamieka and a whole bunch of other folks to tell them what was wrong with what they were doing and why it didn't work. And they ignored it. And sometimes the only way to right a wrong like that is to fight, and that's what we did. So that's from the market side. Sorry, a little more of the answer because I've been blabbing on for too long already. But is the consumer part, the patients? We have an oligopoly in this state, which is a monopoly with a group, is basically an oligopoly. That's the system that we have, and that leads necessarily to high prices, low availability, and low innovation. Because you've got an oligopoly, you have no need to compete, you have no need to have the best product, you just have the only available product. And you can see that in the prices in Florida, and you can see that in the quality of the product in Florida. It's not bad, it's just not, there's nothing innovative, it's not pushing the industry forward, and we had that opportunity in Florida. And it's not fair to the patients. We have a patient-focused program, and having higher prices and lower availability still today, it's just not fair. Thankfully, some companies like Cookies actually are coming into the market, and a few others that bring some innovation into the state. But it's taken a long time, and they're not going to get any new innovation from the way they have to operate in Florida. Luckily, they have lots of other ways to do that, and so I think we've got opportunity ahead, but this is a really big blow. It shouldn't be like this. The Constitution says it shouldn't be like this. The legislature disagreed and the court backed them up. That's the story of what happened here.
Right. No, definitely appreciate that. Sorry, Jodi, you were going to say something? Oh, you just threw your hand up.
Shaking my head. Wait, Adam, I was curious. They've sent this back to the First Circuit. Are you going to go back to court again? Is there anything left to fight about?
Yeah, this is not. Yeah, well, I don't know the answer to that now yet. We're still looking at our options. This was just a preliminary injunction. So when they quashed it, the case goes right back down and proceeds to trial. The problem is that we had good evidence already. We could give more evidence, but the legal issues that we were fighting about were resolved not in our favor. So is there anything else left to fight about? It really depends what happens next in a lot of ways. I mean, the state is saying that they're going to create a new application rule and issue up to 15 more licenses. If they did that, that would be something. They would at least be issuing licenses to people who weren't part of the very specific cartel from 2014 that 100% of the licenses have been given out to so far. But how they do that and what happens with all these license purchases, like right now there's a merger announced between two companies that have Florida licenses. What is the state doing about that? Because that's illegal in Florida. So how is the state going to handle that? And is the process going to be as fragmented and loosey-goosey? I don't know. I have a 6-year-old. I guess that's why that came into my head.
Very accurate term, man.
There you go. Is it going to be the same kind of fragmented way of approaching it that they've approached every other sale in this state? So there's a lot of moves left for the state to make, and I think that if we can find more compelling evidence about our special law case that way, then there's no reason to drop the case. If they do it right, then there's no reason to keep going. So we'll see.
Right.
But
And doing it right is key. I think we all can agree on that. We've all spoke to different reasons as to how doing it right should look and what is important with that. And obviously that it is very important. I know, crazy as it sounds, we have flown through this call. We have 15 minutes or so left. And I do want to say sometime if there are any questions from our audience. Remember, guys, share this live with your friends, with your family. Feel free to jump in the chat, ask us questions. Eric, who did an amazing job of helping put this together, is behind the scenes handling all of that. So if you have a question, he can pop it up on the screen. But one thing, and Tamieka, I'm going to be coming to you in a second, so get ready. But Dustin, I wanted to ask you, we talked about a lot of the legalities and, some of the issues that we're facing. Can you give me a little bit of, I'm not, I don't have that legal background, right? Give us some game on, what could potentially be done in the future to kind of mitigate some of these challenges to where when we do what we're supposed to do, when we provide the evidence, when we're taking care of all of those boxes that need to get checked, and we're still getting things not happening in our favor, what can be done in the future to help mitigate that, if anything? And then Tamieka, I'll get to you as well, so be on the ready. Dustin.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough question. So I mean, there's three branches. There's three branches of government. I mean, from everything from voting to your legislator. Obviously, you have the court system, and then you have the executive branch as well. So I mean, those are kind of your options as far as that goes. But really, it's advocacy, getting out there talking, letting your voice be heard, and doing things like if you believe in something, and do something like Florigrown did, put your money where your mouth is, and really try to fight it. The unintended consequences of this court case is, I mean, at the end of the day, these 22 licensees, they loved this court case continuing to be appealed. It just perpetuated I guess, if you want to call it the cartel. These 22 licenses love this court case. So I know that the intention was to break up, the vertical and make it horizontal. And look, I'm a small law firm, right? So like, the more broken up it is, I represent the little guy. That's why a large percentage of my clients are hemp clients as opposed to marijuana clients. When you're an enormous size MSO that has $1 billion market cap, you can't really hire Mr. Cannabis Law. You have to hire one of these big law firms. And I understand that. I know my role. I know my place in the industry. So I represent the small guys. So a horizontal structure would greatly benefit my law firm, because it would benefit the small guy. And that's really who I represent. So, at the end of the day, licenses will become available, whether the department is going to do emergency rules or they'll go through the normal rulemaking process. By my estimation, I think the application process will open up in the next 5 to 6 months. So I encourage people to try to get involved, try to put a team together. I wasn't planning on saying this on the call, but my plan is to put a team together filled with the small guy. I represent the small guys, and I've had MSOs from all over the country calling to hire me and work with me as these licenses come up. And I've decided to actually not do that. Obviously, we don't even see the application, and we don't know what that's going to look like. So I'm not sitting here saying that I know what my ultimate plan is. But I'll tell you that the clients that I work with in the hemp industry are very much capable, if they're collectively put together, from the growers to the processors to some of the retail stores that I work with. They're fully capable. As long as they're put together in a vertically integrated fashion, there's an opportunity for some of these small guys to get a bite at the apple. But they really need to come together and work with one another, and find someone who's willing to take them on and draft an application and not charge them, $500,000 to $1 million. So, that's kind of, I guess, my recommendation is, if you might feel like the small guy or the small woman, or, whatever it is, but if we all come together, we could be pretty big.
There's definitely power in numbers, Dustin. I am right with you, my man. Tamieka, I promised I was going to kick it to you, and here it comes. We got like 13 minutes left, and I know we got a couple of questions. What can you give us a little bit about what Cookies is doing, if you can, specifically as far as outreach in the community, and as far as just trying to make sure that they're doing things that are, accountable, keeping the environment very diverse and inclusive, obviously, especially here in the state of Florida. I care about what's happening in Cali, but I don't go there too often. This is my sunshine state. So I want to know what's happening here. And then if you could give me any extra things that you would say. Dustin just gave us some great recommendations as far as moving forward, what you can do, and next steps. If you could add on and give us a couple of those that you might have as well.
Yeah, I actually just came from Cali, and it's a total different market out there. And Cookies, Cookies is one of the fastest growing cannabis companies, cannabis MSOs, multi-state operators, but they're heavily based in the West Coast. And we know that the West Coast laws is very different than the East Coast laws. So the innovativeness that we have, that the company has been successful with on the West Coast, I'm pretty sure that we're looking to bring that to the East Coast, but it's a total different regulatory model. So we're new here in Florida, and we're still working through some things and figuring some things out. But we're definitely looking to bring a lot of those creative and innovative things that we do on the West Coast, to Florida and the East Coast. We do a lot with social equity in terms of our employees. We're committed to hiring employees that have a criminal background. We're committed to paying above a minimum living wage. We pay double the actual living wage. We're committed to giving employee benefits. We're committed to volunteering and paying our employees to volunteer in the community. We're committed to giving back revenue to communities. We're committed to supporting nonprofits. We're committed to hosting expungement clinics. Our program is a proprietary program, so we don't force our employees to be college educated, because we train them both on the cannabis side and then also on the business side. So we're really, really committed to being able to having an impact in a community by hiring people in the community, dedicating a certain percentage of all of our employees to being local hires, to make sure that the people in the community can economically benefit, as well as the company benefits from from serving the patients, as well as working with local companies in the area to make sure that we're pouring back some of our revenue back into the community. But there's just a whole host of outreach, as well as internal things that the company is doing to benefit the community, that it has to be done on a MSO level in a vertical state like Florida. It's not like it is in the West Coast, where it's horizontal and you can get in on a lot of different angles. And I come at this from an advocate. I remember being in those hearings, with everyone here on the stage. So, but also as an attorney, I was a solo practitioner for 5 or 6 years, so I can definitely understand Dustin. 90% of my clients are minority clients, and that's a different clientele all in itself. So, being an attorney, even we understand that even when we're right, we can still lose. So that's just the law, and we just have to move through it. And I'm very happy to be with a company that is looking to be innovative in a new market like Florida, to make sure that although the rules are what they are and where they're going to stay, we can be creative and to make sure that we give back and do in the community as we should.
Hey, I love that. Thank you so much, Tamieka. I appreciate that. I think that it's important, like you said, even if we don't have horizontal integration right now, it's important that the players in the game are still doing what's right. So critical. And definitely appreciate that. Jodi, I'm going to kick it over to you. We had a question in the chat as we get ready to wrap here shortly. Bakari asks, once it is legalized, what changes from the current scenario?
So I just love that, because that's the word of the day. And quite frankly, legalization really is probably not what most people who say they like marijuana want, because the definition of legalization starts to talk about regulation. And that's where we get into the attorneys, and that's when we get into the workshops. So to answer the question, until we have removed criminal penalties for cannabis consumers, somebody's still going to go to jail. Every regulation that we put into place somebody is either going to get fined or they're going to go to jail. The more barriers we put to people having access to this plant, the more we continue to send people to jail. And, that's a hard thing to think about. They've legalized marijuana in California, yet people still get arrested. They've legalized marijuana in Colorado, and yet people still get arrested. We need to deal with some of the core issues. And certainly over policing in certain neighborhoods, the idea that it's okay for one guy to do something and it's totally not okay for the next guy. The idea that this plant, we've put barriers to access to this plant in terms of felonies. If you have a felony that you haven't had expunged, you can't even be part of the hemp industry. So some of these barriers are going to continue to be in place. And regulation doesn't change that. We have to change hearts and minds. We have to remind people that this is not an evil plant. This is a plant that we all need. We need it in our economy. We need it in our lives. We need to be feeding our endocannabinoid system. Dear God, we need to be growing it so we can wear it, because cotton's not the best thing for any of us. And polyester is killing the environment. So the long and the short of all of this is committed, passionate people taking it all the way, just like Adam said, and just like Tamieka's been doing, and just like Dustin is doing right now for his clients. So I think that what happens after legalization is entirely up to us.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I would encourage everybody who is tuning in, get involved, whether it's M for MM, whether it's Florida Can, do something, get involved, find a way to let your voice be heard, educate somebody else, and let them know that this is not an evil plant. That Jodi hit the nail on the head. It's gonna, and Dustin mentioned it too, there's power in numbers. We have to be able to get as many people to be on the same page as we are, as far as feeling like the plant is, and knowing that the plant is only going to do us good, and that we need to utilize it. And on top of that, we need to make sure that people who are currently incarcerated or have criminal records because of cannabis, and in the future are not dealing with those issues. That's why we have things like expungement clinics that M4MM does, that Florida Can, and Jodi talked about being involved with those as well. I know Dustin does great work. So definitely get involved. I want to give everybody, there's one more question. I think it was on the screen there for a second. How does this, and we'll try to be quick, so whoever wants to grab it, and then we'll wrap. We got a question. How does this ruling impact the Pickford license? Is there any hope for a minority license getting the first of this next 15? So who wants to take that? Feel free.
You can take it, Adam.
There's always hope. I think that they so convoluted the way that the law was supposed to work in explaining how they gave away the licenses they gave away during our case. There were only 12 MMTCs when we sued. Actually, there were 22 now. So they settled with 10 people, and 10 of those licenses, came after our case. I'm suspect that they're going to have any application process at all. I mean, it would be great if they had it in the next 5 to 6 months. I think the people in the Department of Health fully intend to, but we sued because they weren't releasing applications, and then we filed for our preliminary injunction for that. And prior to us suing, they had a different reason why they weren't opening up applications. And then they had our suit, and they said it was our injunction, even though the injunction wasn't in force. And they gave away 10 licenses during that time. So they didn't feel like they couldn't give away licenses. They just couldn't open up an application process. And that all despite the fact that the legislature mandated that they give them away. The reality is these licenses result in litigation. these blind, the way that they're trying to do it results in a ton of litigation. The rule's going to be challenged. Everything's going to be challenged, and not by us, by the way. We've spent enough money, but I think I think that the reality is that it's hard to do that, and I think the Pigford license is one of the easier ones to issue, because there's less people who could potentially apply for it. So they may try to do that first. That's like the optimistic view of hoping they can get that one out, because it looks terrible that they still, no one's allowed in the industry who wasn't in essentially to enter the industry, who wasn't a nursery for 30 years in Florida, which they've already proven was the realities of Florida during that time with the Pigford suit show that it was completely racist and completely prohibited minorities from having an opportunity to participate. So, there's never been a license issued that that a minority had a fair shot at getting, not a single one. So I hope 23 is that. I hope it is, but I'm not holding my breath.
I am not. I agree with everything Adam said. A Pigford license, there's no reason why a Pigford license should not have been already issued. As according to how the rules were set, that one particular license was so specific that it just doesn't make sense. They deserve to have a license. So that at minimum, that should be a step that is taken soon. But it just. But I'm not sure, as from my advocate hat, I'm not sure that I'm optimistic that we will see that in 2021. Again, and the other side of that is, if they do, will that lead to other lawsuits?
Right.
So it's a never-ending what if.
All roads lead to more lawsuits. If you watch what happened in we applied for like 8 licenses in Illinois in like January 2020, and they got people that lost sued, and then they won, and then so the people that won sued, and now Illinois doesn't know what to do. And you see it in New Jersey, Arizona, pretty much every state. It's just this whole industry. It's we don't quite know how it's supposed to be rolled out, and so there's just tons of lawsuits.
And then look what happened in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
It's because the government tries to do it different. They think it's special, and it's not special. We have 80 years of great administrative law that comes from the regulation of things like alcohol and tobacco, and also things like pharmaceuticals and things like oil production and all sorts of dangerous things. So it's not rocket science. They just choose to ignore it all. Doesn't matter if it's a good system or a bad system like Florida. They ignore this stuff, and there's 80 years of litigation around it that makes that stuff a lot easier. But
listen, we can go around on this all day and talk about those issues. One thing is for absolute certain: we still have a lot of work to do. We still need more advocates in the space. We still need more people who believe that there's a right way to do this, and that way is attainable, and not only attainable, but it's deservedly so. So I know we're over time. I want to give everybody the opportunity to just sign off by saying, what you have going on. One more time for anybody who came on to the live late, let the people know about your business, what you have going on, any upcoming events. And I am going to start with Jodi.
Well, Florida Cannabis Action Network has been here for 23 years, and we're not going away. We are a membership organization. And if you are looking for a way to plug in, save the date. In October 9, we are going to be hosting the Capital Crusade to Wellness. That's during community weeks. That's a great time of year in the Panhandle. And we have an amazing space called the Equestrian Farm that we have reserved. So we'll look forward to hearing from all of you, because I'm sure you will be speakers.
Looking forward to it, Jodi. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for being here. Next, Tamieka. I think you're on mute.
Yes, I have a 1.5-year-old in the background, so I have to be back and forth to make sure that those screams are not heard.
Understandable.
But yes, thank you again for having me, DJ. Again, my name is Tamieka Range. I am the Director of Community Relations with Cookies, and we are a multi-state operator, and we are looking forward to bringing a lot of our community outreach here to Florida. We just did an expungement clinic with Minorities for Medical Marijuana in LA last weekend, and we are looking forward to doing a lot more work here in Florida.
Awesome, awesome. We are looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Dustin.
Yeah, sorry, I just printed something. Dustin Robinson, founding partner of Mr. Cannabis Law. We're a full-service law firm for the cannabis and psychedelic industry. I also launched a nonprofit focused on legalization of psychedelics at the end of 2019. We've been very active drafting resolutions and bills throughout the country. We actually filed a bill here in Florida not too long ago. It didn't pass, but it got the conversation started, and it actually got way more support than I thought it would. And I also launched an investment firm that is exclusively focused on deploying capital into the psychedelic system, mainly psychedelic biotech companies. So that's what I got going on.
Nice, nice, very nice, Dustin. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Adam.
Hey, Adam Eland, CEO of Florigrown. Stay tuned is my answer to what's happening next for us. We're talking to a bunch of folks. We're trying to figure out what our next legal strategy is, our next strategy as a business. We never stopped pivoting during this whole four years. So this is really nothing new for us now that the case is over. But the big message is we're not going anywhere. We're committed to the industry in Florida, making it as good as it can be, and so stay tuned, and looking forward to working with all of you and all you all on the Facebook Live as well.
Thank you so much, Adam. And again, everybody, my name is DJ Howard. I am the Florida chapter president for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. This has been our very first edition of Let's Talk Cannabis. So I wanted to just give a big shout out to everybody here who joined us. Shout out to Eric, who is behind the scenes, Mr. Chairman, who really helped put this all together and is handling all the tech stuff for me. Thank you so much, E. Shout out to you, my brother. And stay tuned. We'll have more of these. We really want you all to get involved, find some way to connect with us, connect with Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and everybody else on this call. We're doing some great things in the state. We appreciate you so much, and we will talk soon. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.